Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Cutting Through the Bullshit. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie Snyder, and I am a high performance mentor. Through my unique blend of strategy, mindset, and intuition, I help men and women to cut through the BS in order to create the life and business they desire. So, this is going to be a great topic. We're going to talk about why knowing better isn't enough to help us do better. And I've often quoted this, to do better, you have to know better. But that's only a part of it. To do better, you have to know better and then make the changes, right? You actually have to apply the things that you know to your life, which is why I love when I ask people, who would you be if you took your own advice? Because the truth is, we do know. We know all the things that we're supposed to be doing to be healthy, to pay down debt, to grow a business, right? Like, we know the things. The problem is that we don't apply a lot of them. And we don't apply a lot of them for a number of reasons, right? There's a lot of beliefs, and they are absolutely limiting beliefs that say, well, it's going to be different, right? I am unique enough that universal law doesn't apply to me. Okay, no, right? And then there's the fear. What if it doesn't happen? Or the fear of, holy crap, what if it does happen? Like, what if I no longer have a bullshit reason to not be myself, right? Like, that's, I've had that fear come up where it's been like, all right, let's say I go all in and I'm 100% me and I show up unapologetically, then what? And my ego's like, well, we wouldn't have anything to complain about, right? And so it's not enough to know better in order to do better. You have to know better and be better to do better, right? And so the being better, what does that mean? Well, that means that you yourself are actually applying the things that you know. Right? I can ask my kids, right? Like, what did I ask you to do? And they look at me dumbfounded, and then I go, you know what I asked you to do. Oh yeah. Well, why haven't you done it yet? I don't know. Right? And it's a part of it is we get sidetracked, right? We have so many things that are available to us. And there are so many different options for this and that. And there's a million different marketing strategies. And there's a million ways that you can, change your health and your nutrition. There are so many ways that we can do it that we get bogged down with all of these choices that we never actually make any choices. We don't actually make the decision to be better, even though we now know all of these ways. And so, as I do regularly, I want to challenge you to actually be a better person this year. That doesn't mean that you're mean and that you're not kind to people, right? Like, that's not what I'm suggesting. Although, if you need help there, that's fine too, right? What I am suggesting is that you take some of the knowledge that you already have and actually apply it to your life and see what happens. This is where I talk about these little mini experiments. We know the things that we have to do to lose weight. We know the things that we have to do to pay off our credit cards and to curb our spending. And we know the things that we have to do to grow our business and to have better relationships. But we don't do them because we get stuck in our habits. We get stuck in the ways that things are, that we end up being a little insane, right? I talked about this on the previous episode. Being a little insane because we're doing the same thing expecting different results, right? I remember when I was, I had made the decision that I was going to change my relationship with money. And every time I looked at the bank account, I said to myself, okay, what would you normally do? And then I said, don't do that. Right? I knew what I had to do, but I wasn't doing it because my relationship with money was behavioral. It was a habit. It was the way things always were, is what I simply did. And so I had to slow down and say, okay, what do you normally do? Okay, don't do that. What do we want to do instead? right? And I shared about this on social media the other day. If you have to make decisions based off of where you want to be, not where you are. When you make the decisions based off of where you want to be, eventually you get to that place. But if you continue to make decisions based off of where you are currently, you're going to stay here in this space, at this weight, with this debt, with this lack of business, right? Like whatever it is with a bad relationship, right? Like if you don't make different decisions, your outcome will never be different. And so again, it's not enough to know better. You actually have to be better to do better. And so that requires the slowing down. This is not an overnight success kind of a thing. You are your habits. And your habits, good or bad, have served you to this point. But if you don't love where you are, maybe you're content, maybe you're grateful for it, but you know that there's still room for advancement, which is where you probably are, right? If you're listening to this podcast, cutting through the bullshit with high performers, right? Like you're in a good spot, but there's always room for improvement. And that's not a chasing perfectionism kind of thing. It's simply continuing to grow, continuing to learn more, continuing to be better, and thereby do better. Right? And so, yes, I am so grateful for the life that I have right now. So grateful. I was dancing in the kitchen earlier today, just being like, it's a great day, right? It's a great day. And I know there's more growth on the way this year. We're only in January. It's going to be an incredible year. My word for this year, and we're going to digress a little bit here. My word for this year is expansion. I had a girlfriend ask me over New Year's Eve, leading up to the new year. She said, "Hey, what's your word for the year?" And I said, "Actually, I haven't picked one. Typically, I do. Last year, for 2024, my word was intention. And then when I was journaling a few days after the new year, the word expansion came up. And this is going to be an expansive year for me. There are so many opportunities on the horizon, and I am so excited about it. I also know that my personality wants to go in guns blazing, like balls to the wall, do all of the things. I also know that when I try to do all of the things at 1,000,000 miles an hour, I get overwhelmed and I get stressed, and then I snowball into a self-sabotage, right? I know this because I've seen it happen before. And so while I do have all of these opportunities coming up, I am also giving myself the space to enjoy the extra time right now, because there is going to be a learning curve in this next growth period. There's going to be a part of me that is going to take more delegation and a little bit more time at the beginning until I find my efficiency and my flow and my effectiveness there, right? And so I know this about myself. And so while I could say, you know what, I'm going to do 1,000,000 things right now, until that thing starts, I'm going to have all these other things in place, right? But it's not going to serve me. And so I'm actually going to take my own advice and say, you know what, enjoy this downtime. Enjoy this time where your schedule is not chock full of meetings and calls and consultations and clients and all these things, where you actually have some space to breathe. Enjoy this time and be prepared for that time to start to be limited a little bit. But here's the thing, it's going to be a nice trade-off, right? Like, I'm happy to give up an hour of sitting by the fire when I have 4 of them to spend some time with some clients, to do some consultations, to do some executive coaching, right? Like, I'm happy to make that trade. And as long as I'm happy to make that trade, I'll make the trade. Okay. And one thing that I'm willing to trade, right? I was thinking about this yesterday. This is probably going to be a different topic. So you know what? I'm going to give you a cliffhanger. You're going to have to listen to the next episode to get that part, that little story. Okay. So let's come back to this idea of we can't do better until we know better, but that's only part of it. So Again, if you have, right, there are three or four main areas in which people seek support, in which they spend money on, right? Like, okay. And that's relationships, AKA marriage, love, counseling, right? Whatever it is, relationships, okay? Health and nutrition, and then money. And money means, paying off debt, making more money, right? Like whatever that is, career, and then careers, right? So work advancement, right? So those are the four areas that people typically see people spend money in, people invest their time and energy into because they want to be better in these areas. Okay? So if you know that you want to be better in one of those areas, I recommend that you don't bite off more than you can chew and you start with one of those areas. Okay? This is actually the work that I do with my clients is I will have them, we actually use 6 areas in my coaching container where we do 6 areas and I say, okay, where do you want to be a year from now? They give me that information. Where do you want to be 5 years from now in those areas? Cool, great. And then we work on the one thing that has kind of this domino effect to all of those other areas. And what's interesting is I can see that pretty quickly, right? I can almost instantaneously see the thing that's tripping you up in these 6 areas and say, okay, let's focus on this one because it's actually going to have the greatest impact in everything else. And a little secret for you, has to do with your beliefs, right? Because I have them say, okay, where do you want to be a year from now, 5 years from now? Where are you now? Where are you in those areas right now? So if you're not happy about your relationship with your partner, okay, what does that look like right now? Why are you not happy with it? What does it look like? And what would you want it to look like? Because you've got to start making those decisions off of what you want it to look like, right? I did the same thing when as a mom, right? I knew from the very beginning that I didn't want to be a mom that worked 9 to 5, ever. That was, right? Like, it was not anything I ever wanted to do. And so I made decisions for my career, for the things that I did, based off of the fact that that was something I didn't want. And so after college, right, I did a master's degree in government and I got a job teaching at a smaller school. I was teaching. And then when we moved to Sicily, that became online teaching. And that was back in 2009, way before it was cool, right? Way before it was cool, right? But that was something that I made those decisions based off of the fact that I knew I never wanted to work a 9 to 5. And so I made them because I knew what I wanted and what I didn't wanted. And I made those choices accordingly, right? This is where you have to know what you want in order to make those decisions. You have to know where you want to go in order to make the appropriate decisions, the appropriate choices. Now, if you're happy with where things are and you're like, you know what, Steph, I don't want to change anything. I just want to live life. That's awesome. I love that for you. It's incredible. Okay. I know for me, it's not that I'm chasing something. I know that I'm enough right now as I am. It's that I desire more. And that's okay. It's okay to want to be healthier and more active, right? It's okay to want to make more money so you can be more financially secure. It's okay to want to have a better relationship with your partner. It's okay to want to advance your career. Because I'm a driven person. If I were to stay like this for the rest of my life, I would be bored out of my freaking mind. Not because I don't love it, but because I enjoy the growth. I enjoy the challenges that come with that and the expansion. And it's amazing, right? And so I share all of this with you because I have to take back the previous statements that I've said where in order to do better, you have to know better, because that's not enough. We know the things that we're supposed to do. There are fears that come up that stop us short. These limiting beliefs that get in the way that say you can't, you're not able to. You're not good enough. You're not worthy enough, right? You're too this, you're too that. You're not of this and you're not enough of that. Those are all BS stories that are keeping you stuck. And you've got to look at them when they come up. Some of this work takes time. Some of it you're like, oh shoot, that hit quickly. Move on, let's do the next thing. Some of them repeat themselves over and over and over and over and over again until you really, really learn it. Guilty, right? There are lessons that have continued to come up for me over and over and over and over again, where I'm like, this again? And God's like, yeah, we didn't master it last time. Okay, great. Let's give it a whirl. Let's do it again, right? And so if you really want to do better this year, you want the end of the year to look different, not because you're not grateful for 2024, but because you're just ready for the next level. It's going to take you being better. And that's going to take you making different choices and applying what it is that you've actually learned. That was one of the greatest things that I got from a book several years ago when I had read it. At the very beginning of this book, this author said, I understand, like she was honest. She was like, listen, I know that some of you are just going to read this book to just check it off your list that you read it. But those of you who actually want to get something out of this book, you're going to take 3 things and apply those 3 things to your life before you read the next book. And I loved that. Loved it so much because, again, knowing is not enough. You actually have to be better, be different. Something has to create that change in you for you to actually do better. So, I'm sending you so much love. I'm going to recap this for you real quick because I think that's paramount, right? So, here it is. A couple of little steps, okay? Number 1, in order to do better, it's not just about knowing better, you actually have to be better. You've got to apply the things, okay? Number 2 here, if you're going to apply the things, start with one thing at a time. Do not try to change all of the things at once. It's going to feel overwhelming, right? You'll be really excited about it at the beginning. But at some point, you're going to hit this tipping point, and there's going to be a tipping point where you're like, is it worth it? And then you have to choose the vision of where you want to be a year from now or where you are right now. Okay? And the third part here is to give yourself a whole bunch of grace. We're not going to get it right the first time. We're going to suck it at the first time, probably. And that's okay. Right? I'm going to actually talk about this more in the next episode. So be on the lookout for that. I'm going to help you with this idea about failure. So I am sending you so much love. I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your day. And as always, be you because the world needs more of you. Bye, love.